Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 707 podcast, where we are at the Beagle Child, gathered here for a discussion of a short story this evening. I am Alex Latanzi, and with me is Nathan McBride and Phil Stankus. And tonight we are doing the Nathaniel Hawthorne story, The Wives of the Dead, which was recommended for this episode by Nathan. Yeah, so Nathan, you want to talk about why you chose this story?
Sure. I have been a Nathaniel Hawthorne fan for a number of years. I especially like his short stories. I came across this one about 10 years ago, and it stuck with me partly because it's different from a lot of his stories. It's a lot shorter, and it has a different kind of tone. If anybody knows Hawthorne, they'll probably think of really deep, dark, moral tales that leave you with a little bit of pain, but in this one you'll see is very different, and I think you'll like it.
I did like it. Nathaniel Hawthorne is
Well,
someone I really, from what little stories of his I've read, I really enjoy them. So that's kind of pushing me now to go and read the rest of them.
yeah,
You picking this story, I guess now you can go in more detail why you wanted to
yeah.
read it.
The thing that brought it to mind directly a couple of weeks ago was I went to a funeral for someone that I knew, and on the way back, yeah, it was just there's just a sense of hope beyond death in this story, the way it ends up, obviously. But that doesn't take away from the fact that the first, I don't know, the first half of the story, it gets pretty deep into describing pretty straightforwardly what that grief feels like. The guests are there, they're there till evening. You kind of want them to leave. You appreciate it that they're there, but it's like we kind of need to be alone, and the familiar passages of scripture being repeated that are comforting but just bring tears, and then you're finally alone, and you're alone with the empty house. You're just there with each other, finding support in one another, though you're both grieving, going to bed but not being able to sleep, and hearing the knock at the window, waking up and realizing, oh, I'm still here
Mm-hmm.
in this situation. It goes really deep into those feelings. It's very honest about that. It's not a Pollyanna story, even though the way it ends up going is wonderfully miraculous. And but yes, but the hope is just as genuine and magical at the end. That I'm looking forward to talking about that. But first, I'd like to hear you all's reactions because I think it was new to you all.
Yeah, no, I just read it today, and I think the aspect of the like the family and the mourners and the preacher coming in, like giving through all like that. Yeah, that like I appreciated kind of the way that was presented because actually it made me think of this of Harlan Ellison actually talking about grief, and he said like when people are giving you like telling you like oh they're in a better place, it's like well they're in a better place but they're not here now, so
Yeah,
it's like sometimes those kinds of consolations do a little more harm than good. It's almost like the cynicism of like the modern uh, conditioning creeping in while I'm reading this, expecting things to
yeah,
take a bleak turn, an even bleaker turn by the end or something. But no, and then it's like then I know who I'm dealing with. So it's kind of like okay,
hmm,
because I'm not really entire like I am used to like I've read some other stuff by Hawthorne I remember, so I'm not
hmm,
exactly sure where it would go, but I appreciate the courage actually to do that kind of an ending,
yeah,
which I think takes and to pull it off well it requires a lot more courage than to do like the just completely dour ending. Um,
right. I was just gonna say I read this. I think when I was in college, I'd either just taken an intro to creative writing class, or I was just yeah. I think I just had, and all the stories we read for that just showed me and just trying to write a short story yourself. I just realized it's a lot easier to write a story with an unhappy ending,
Yeah.
where you set things up, there are bad things, and then death. You know, this
Yeah.
this and this doesn't work. Boom.
And then
But
somebody pulls out a
if you're
gun
writing a
and shoots it.
genuinely good story, like
Yeah.
with a happy ending, I mean, you can have good stories with unhappy endings, but like a story with a happy ending that you earn and that has all the that works through everything it takes to get to a genuinely
Mm-hmm.
happy ending is hard to do.
Yeah, that's what makes it work, I think, is just like the repetition, like the doubling of these revelations and the dreams and like these like almost angelic messengers, kind of like in a sense, like that these men are. But then also, I loved just taking like the descriptions of the night and the
Mm-hmm.
shadows and the it says the fragments of a world like order glimmering through chaos or memory roaming over the past.
Yeah,
The lantern he's talking about
yeah,
gleaming over the street and then just some of
yeah.
the dreamlikeness of the with the later with the moon, talking about that on the
Mm-hmm.
in the passage of time and the weather, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just the absolutely beautiful like sense of like place and uh,
Yeah,
time, but yeah, and also the talking about of dreams that we don't see, but
right,
they're
right.
like kind of they're suggested, that the like so it's a really really like wonderful atmosphere and still with that kind of like uh, I don't know, that kind of delicious, comforting darkness
Mm-hmm.
that I appreciate in stories
Yeah,
like this.
yeah, there's definitely a bit of like gothicness to some of the descriptions, especially in
Mm-hmm.
that first half, and especially the light and the shadows, as you were saying. And I think another one was like a lantern was reddening in front of the house and melting its light in the neighboring puddles, while a deluge of darkness overwhelmed every other object. And this is when before the man in the broad-brimmed hat appears under the shelter of the projecting story. Just some
Mm-hmm.
really beautiful stuff, and light I noticed kept popping up like all throughout.
Mm-hmm.
I think yeah, because there's the hearth is in the set. Essentially, the layout of the place is there's one um, center room or like foyer, and then there's the
Mm-hmm.
two wings where
Mm-hmm.
the wives are sleeping, and the doors are open so they can see into the main room where the hearth is, and then also a little bit into the other room so they can see across from each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like this fireplace is like the central
Mm-hmm.
point, and they both like pick up a lamp out of the hearth before they go over to
Mm-hmm.
the windows, and it's just I feel like there's a lot there that I haven't that I think could certainly be plumbed,
Yeah.
but yeah, the repetitions of light. Although I will say, as far as the ending goes, I was on my first read of it, I was actually unsure of
Mm.
if it was a good ending or a or slightly ambiguous, because
Mm.
that last line it says, "But her hand trembled against Margaret's neck, a tear also fell upon her cheek, and she suddenly awoke." And I'm not entirely sure who that she is referring to.
Doesn't that throw a monkey wrench into it?
It would, wouldn't
It
it?
I wouldn't necessarily go in that direction, except for the fact that it does bring up these dreams throughout the story, or kind of hints at them. I think there's another one. Yeah, it says like, happy is it and strange that the lighter sorrows are those from which dreams are chiefly fabricated.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
You know,
so I'm
I wonder if that line helps resolve the question. Because if the finding out my husband's not dead is a dream, that would be from a much deeper sorrow that that dream is fabricated.
Well,
yeah,
it's I notice that when people die, or it's like the particular people I noticed
Yeah.
like twice
Yeah.
with me.
Mm-hmm.
Two people that I remember, family having died, and soon after have like a dream of them in their
Yeah.
seeing them in their prime. You know, I guess you
Right.
could say like that, seeing it that
Yeah.
way.
That's true.
And I think that's kind of a lot of people like notes having some dreams like that experience after that. I know having
I'm glad you brought.
you take this
Yes.
and put in like, oh, it's all a dream at the end,
That would be awful, wouldn't
which could be
it? Yeah.
awful, and which
Well,
from a story writing
the,
perspective is like one of the things you don't do.
Uh-huh.
right,
But
right. The thing that makes me think in favor of it not being a dream is the fact that Mary sees Margaret smiling as she's sleeping.
Mm.
So she has
Mm.
some knowledge of the fact that Margaret is like joyous or happy at the moment. It's like,
Right.
would that be because then if she wakes up from that, would that mean that she dreams seeing her happy? Like that would
Right.
that
Right.
complicates things,
Right.
although
If they're
yeah,
it
dreaming,
doesn't
they're in the same
100%.
I
dream.
think we're
Yeah.
coming at
Yeah.
this from we are coming at this from a different era. Been
Yes. That's
Yeah.
inundated
true.
with rug pools of this sort.
Yeah. I'll admit I've wondered that too, though,
Yeah.
and I'm glad you brought that up, Phil, because one of the things Hawthorne in his Romanticism era, other people do this, but Hawthorne does it a lot. That he does a lot is leaning into ambiguity here and there. I think of um, Scarlet Letter, where he's like, "Was this the cause, or was this the cause? I'm not gonna tell you. I don't know, but it was one or the other, you know." Or and here, when one of the sisters is looking out the window, and she says, after as the guy was walking away, she was kind of doubting between waking and reality, as he was going in and out between the light and the shadow. Was he
Yeah.
really there? Did I just imagine this? But eventually the joy comes in and it's like, no, yeah, that really did happen. Oh my goodness, this is so great. And so
Yeah.
I think I also come down where I think we're all coming down in that it is it did happen. Because like you said, the one sister sees that the other is happy. I think that is the best clue we have that
Yeah.
yes, yes, there's a shared world here of goodness and truth and hope.
Also,
Yes.
because the window latch is unlatched, like
Oh, nice.
yeah,
Yes.
Mm.
Yes, somehow it had been left unlatched, and we know how.
mm-hmm.
But Hawthorne says it as if he doesn't know, because he's writing with her
mm.
perspective, kind of telling us she doesn't know how it got left unlatched by some accident, and we're like, we know the accident. Yeah,
And also note again that language of light again when you're saying that it takes a little while for her to actually feel the joy of it. It says
yeah,
that joy flashed into her heart and lighted it up at once. So
hmm,
again, like this repetition of light all
yeah.
throughout.
You're right.
Yeah. What a nice little story, especially
There's a
today, because the weather was much cooler. And while I was reading this, I really appreciated just the in the opening talking about the rainy twilight of an autumn day.
Yeah, I love the atmosphere that he builds, and I feel like he builds it on multiple, not dimensions, but like distances, or like multiple sorts of place. He has a strong sense of place in that both the weather around where they are, and the fact that they're on the Bay province, they're on the coast. So you've got the one sister who has the husband who works out in the sea, he's a sailor, and then you've got the other sister whose husband is fighting in the French and Indian Wars. And just like we've got the two sisters with the two rooms on the two sides of the house, their husbands have traveled in opposite directions, one east, one west, one to the sea, one to the land. There's even sort of a fairy tale tone
Mm-hmm.
to the repetition of it happening and that premise itself. But it's also really set in the history of American 1700s.
Yeah.
Um, he does that a lot. Again, Scarlet Letter, but that's not the only thing. He writes other stories that delve into different eras of American history. He really likes his American history, and I think it's in the preface to Scarlet Letter, where he writes, "I was born in Salem, and that the history of Salem and those witch trials always kind of was hanging over me. So I made sure to have my kids born in other places. So I don't know, this sense of place and the
Mm-hmm.
history of the place is it just fills the whole vibe of everything that he's writing and enriches it.
Just kind of a couple of flyby quotes. Like there are some great lines just in and of themselves if you want to take them out as proverbs. You could almost do so. Like it is difficult to be convinced of the death of one whom we have deemed another self, and just like how much that hits to marriage and that whole union that goes on, and a very and also drawing from some of that the Christian imagery that he hints at before with like the verses and the sort of world that the world that they're living in and that they're receiving from the priests and some of the well wishers, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like that's probably the strongest one at this
Mm-hmm.
point. And I love this section where he said like two vacant armchairs, again the twins, um, describing their brothers. Two vacant armchairs were in their old positions on opposite sides of the hearth, where the brothers had been wont to sit in young and laughing dignity as heads of families. Two humbler seats were near them, the true thrones of that little empire, where Mary in herself had exercised in love a power that love had won. That phrase, exercise in love a power that love had won. That's just beautiful and exactly like descriptive of motherhood and just like caring for a family.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
do kind of wonder what's going on with the rest of the family because they're not
Hmm.
really hinted at here. I don't know how old these women are.
Right.
Um, like if the children have grown up and gone away. From that line, I tend to think that I would think that there would be children, or it could just be
The
they're not so
the two
important to the
wives,
story.
you mean?
Yes,
Yeah, no,
yeah,
it says they're two young and comely women.
okay.
Yeah, so
Good
they're
catch,
recent
Alex.
brides, so they're young, probably
Must have
no
missed that
children
part.
yet.
I'm glad you mentioned that thing about the armchairs. There are two things I really like about that passage. Is one is the way that he says the way he describes the two bigger chairs, the husband's chairs, and then he
Mhm.
describes the wives' chairs. He calls them the true thrones of that little house. And if he stopped there, it would I think it would tempt us all to do that eye roll and think he's making a joke like, "Oh, the women are actually in charge." But then he adds that other sentence to say that that role it's not that they're overbearing or something. It's that their their important role in the center of that house is in love and won by love, like
Mm-hmm.
you just read.
Right.
It really fills it up in all the right ways. Um, the other thing I really like is how Hawthorne can describe a room or something, and he can give you like two details, and you can picture all of it in your head.
Yeah,
He just
yeah.
tells you there's a fireplace, there are these chairs, there are these other chairs, and then there's this room and this room, and you can picture it. And that's all you need. Somehow he just knows just the right details to give you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of those is the hearth. I think that really does a lot for that because that even that word hearth just gives you this sense of home and um, warmth. He has a story in Mosses from an Old Manse called Fire Worship, which I don't know if it's a story or an essay because he talks about how everything the hearth represents or used to represent, and how now people are bottling it up in these iron stoves. They have these stoves in the middle of their
Mhm.
house, and it's just this metal clanking, whining thing. They bottled fire up, and you don't have this relationship with it. You don't look at it. You don't see it. It doesn't give you warmth. It's just reduced to utility. And so I've started to realize that
Thanks, Mr.
fire.
Franklin.
What? What do you say?
Thanks, Mr. Franklin.
Which Franklin is this?
Bench, or maybe
Oh,
I'm mistaking. Yeah, I know he created some sort of central
Yeah,
stove.
he did.
oh
That
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
I see. Yes, I see. So he's the one we have to blame. I
Yeah.
see. Okay.
Well, what other
Yeah, but I've
what is the I guess what is the ideal form of the fire? Is it more of a like an open hearth, or are you talking about like a stove, like the stove being the more contained version?
Hawthorne was definitely preferring the open hearth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely preferring the traditional family gather around the hearth, have fire sense. I've realized that fire is a constant in Hawthorne stories. Sometimes it's very destructive, and you're looking into it and thinking about death. But other times, especially when it's a stove, actually. But when it's a hearth like this, and he says it's a hearth, it tells you this is a very warm, positive family environment. But
Nice.
for me, the other images, what always stuck out to me about this story, is the metaphors that he uses, and we've talked about some already. The one where he says, "A young man in a sailor's dress, wet as if he had come out of the depths of the sea."
Mm.
It it both gives you that dripping sense of utter wetness because it's been raining, and it also is pointing to this sense of resurrection, coming out of the depths of the sea, being raised back up again. That is the news that he's bringing.
Yeah. And there's also like this sense of it's his element.
Yeah,
He's a sailor, so he's connected to the sea and drenched as if he just came out. That's
yeah,
yeah, no, the idea of that baptism, that resurrection, that's great. I didn't catch that. Thank you for that.
yeah. And that's what I see also in that very last line we were talking about, where the tear falls on Margaret's cheek, and the last words of the story are, "And she suddenly awoke."
Hmm.
This, it's waking up is also an image of resurrection, of coming back to life. I think what I love most about the story and what sticks with me is those very last few paragraphs where who is it, Mary, comes to Margaret's room, and like her sister before her, is like, I don't want to wake her up because I only have good news, and I don't have any good news for her, and she's going to be so sad. But this time, as the audience, we're like, no, she has really good news. You're not going to wake her from a good dream to a bad reality, but the good dream actually is the reality, and there's joy and hope beyond what you can see coming for these women at the start of the story, and at the end. That's still the sense we have, that dramatic irony that there's more good than you know. It's a very deep sense of hope that almost kind of makes you laugh when you're reading, like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't want to wake her. Yeah, which is a very different feeling than you have at the beginning of the story, and that it's able to make that shift to such a genuine filling sense of hope that is very true. It's a that resurrection hope. It's not a mistake that their names are Mary and Margaret, like Mary and Martha, the sisters of Lazarus. There's a very strong sense of hope there. I think that is refreshing for all of us.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's something that somebody reading this and I could imagine someone who's actually like lost a husband or lost a wife and reading through this and thinking, well, almost this is too sugary sweet. Why
Yeah,
couldn't it happen for me? But I think as a story, it pointing to that resurrection hope that is how it will be. Like at the very end of things, like when we do wake up again and we see, we'll see our loved ones. It's like, oh yeah, he's right down the coastline. I'll take you to him. You
yeah,
know, um,
yeah,
but I think that's part of the power. It's that it works both as this kind of homely little fairy tale like story and these two particular characters, but then you can also see it in like that larger universal sense of that that final resurrection.
yeah,
Yes. I'm beyond this story. Thank you for choosing this, Mr. Reed. It's
Yeah.
always good to be introduced to stuff like this.
I'm glad.
And now I need to I'm like ashamed that I don't have any Hawthorne books actually on my shelves.
If it makes you feel any better, Alex, this is the my very first Hawthorne story, so
Oh,
um, I really
yeah,
didn't know what to expect going in, but I enjoyed it thoroughly, and
Great.
yeah.
thanks
No, I
thank you
haven't
for
read
sharing it.
many, but
I can definitely recommend maybe his two main collections of stories like this. The one he print, this one was first published in 1832, and he published his first novel, Scarlet Letter, in like 1850. So this is a really
hmm,
early story for him.
yeah,
But
it
he
shouldn't be
published
hard
it
at all to find.
right. He published it again in 1852 in a collection called "The Snow Image and Other Twice Told Tales." Very good collection. That's where I read this the first time. It's free on Amazon. It's also on Gutenberg. Um,
Right. I
and
did print out my. I went on Project Gutenberg and like printed out the story and like I sliced up with a because I printed it out at work and there was a paper cutter, so I like sliced up the
yeah,
margin so it's like it looks like some kind of like chapbook, uh,
yeah,
like just little like tract or something. I might even do that or yeah, definitely going to read more of them.
yeah. I've also heard good things about his Mosses from an Old Manse. I think
Yeah,
that's his
that's just a
most
great
famous
title.
short story collection. Yeah, yeah, it is. And I've read like a third of them, and I liked them a lot. But he kind of goes back and forth between fiction stories and like I don't know essays or describing things, or and somehow they also work just as well. That giving you that sense of atmosphere and everything. That it doesn't have to be a plot, but when he has a plot, man, it's gonna hit.
Yeah. Well, I think that should about do it. I think for this time. And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what we're gonna read next time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that'll be a surprise each time. I
Yes.
think.
Thank
But
you.
I think we also mentioned like who we are, where we're at, if any. But like for the viewers, just to get listeners. I have a YouTube channel, just AP Latanzi. Same thing with I have an Instagram, AP Latanzi as well. That's about it. So the 707s are we're all friends. We all know each other. We're all writers and artists and creatively inclined, and we get together each week and read what we've written. And we've currently put out a literary magazine, which is available to order on Amazon. Yes, thank you, Nathan. Yes, it's called Fathoms. It contains our writings selected, and so that cover is by Phil Stankus, by the way. He painted that.
So
Yeah.
Alex did a wonderful job of kind of designing it, and there's photos, there's artwork, there's just
Thank you.
little odds and ends, and it's well put together, and I think it does enhance the reading experience. So
Yeah.
um, get it on Amazon.
So yeah, that'll be it for this time. So thank you for watching. Until next time, I'm Alex.
I'm Phil.
I'm Nathaniel Hawthorne. No, I'm Nathan.
He's here.
Good night.